My name is Evelyn Rourke. I'm 63. I came home on a Sunday evening, the desert light still warm against the stucco, a faint scent of dust and creosote in the air. The house felt too still, usually. The old floorboards creaked when the air conditioner kicked on, but that night, it was just silence and the soft ticking of the hallway clock. I set my weekend bag by the door, went straight to my study to put away some documents. The moment I saw the safe, I knew something was wrong. It seemed impossible. But someone with access or knowledge of the combination had acted quietly, leaving no fingerprints or disturbance behind. The door was open. The heavy steel handle turned outward like a mouth left mid-sentence. I froze. The carpet showed no footprints, no scuffs. Everything else, the books, the framed photos, the neat row of ledgers was untouched. Inside the safe, only dust and a faint metallic smell remained. My late husband's watch silver with the firehouse emblem was gone. So were the sealed envelopes I'd labeled over years' property taxes, retirement savings. And the envelope marked Caleb's future, $160,000 in cash. Gone. I touched the inner edge of the door. Smooth. No marks. No prying, no scratches. Whoever opened it had known exactly what they were doing. I called the police. The dispatcher's voice was calm, practiced. Within an hour, a patrol car pulled into the driveway. Detective Ramirez examined everything carefully. No forced entry. The locks on the windows and doors were intact. He asked the question I was already bracing for. Who has the combination? Mrs. Rourke. Just me, I said. Then I hesitated. And my son, Caleb, his wife, Sierra, in case of emergencies. Ramirez nodded slowly, the kind of nod that didn't need words. He photographed the safe, took notes, promised to file a report. I made him coffee while he packed up his kit. He thanked me for my patience, though I wasn't sure that's what I was feeling. After he left, I sat at my desk with the cold coffee still in my hand. The clock on the wall struck 8. Across the hallway, the empty safe door glinted under the lamplight, silent. Accusing. I reached for the phone to call Caleb, then stopped. I wanted to hear his voice, but I didn't know what I'd say. The next morning, the house smelled faintly of coffee and something floral. Sierra's perfume lingered in the hallway before she appeared in the kitchen, humming. She wore a gold bracelet I hadn't seen before, thin, delicate. The kind that didn't come from a department store. Morning, Evelyn, she said brightly, as if the past 24 hours hadn't happened. I thought I'd make us cappuccinos. Caleb picked up a new machine last week. Isn't it lovely? The stainless steel espresso maker gleamed under the light, still tagged with a price sticker on the box beside it. I nodded, pretending to admire it. Sierra's laughter filled the kitchen, too loud for such a quiet house. While she frothed milk, I glanced at the grocery bags on the counter, imported cheese, a bottle of Merlot from Napa, 3 pounds of shrimp. Their budget phase, as Caleb had called it a month ago, seemed to have ended overnight. The sudden change in spending matched the timing of the safe incident, too precise to be coincidence. He joined us a few minutes later, tie loosened, eyes heavy from work. Morning. Mom. Any update from the police? Not yet, I said, watching Sierra pour the coffee with steady hands. They'll need time. Sierra smiled, too quickly. I'm sure it'll all turn up. Things have a way of doing that. After they left for the day, I stood alone in the kitchen, the scent of her perfume still hanging in the air. I opened my planner and drew 2 neat columns, dates and expenses. Under the first line, I wrote June 4th, safe discovered empty. June 7th, Sierra's bracelet, new espresso machine, imported groceries. I closed the planner gently. It wasn't proof, not yet. But numbers always told the truth eventually. 2 days later, while I was trimming the desert sage by the fence, my neighbor, Mr. Patterson, waved from his driveway. He was the kind of man who noticed everything without meaning to. "Morning, Evelyn," he called. "Saw your daughter-in-law the other day over at the Lexus dealership on Scottsdale Road. Quite the place. Looked like she was signing something big." I straightened slowly, dust clinging to my gloves. "Oh, maybe she was just looking," he chuckled. "Didn't look that way to me. She was in the finance office for a good while. Brand new silver SUV parked out front afterward. Beautiful car." I thanked him, kept my tone even, then went inside before my hands started shaking, at my desk. I opened my laptop and searched the dealership's website. Photos of polished cars reflected the desert sky, one in particular. A silver RX 350 caught my eye. The purchase date was 3 days after the safe was emptied, enough to make my suspicion concrete. The listed date of purchase matched 3 days after the robbery. That evening, I drove by Caleb and Sierra's apartment. The silver Lexus sat in the parking lot, its paint glinting under the security lights. New plates, no dust. I stood there in my car for a long minute, the air conditioner humming softly, my pulse steadying. When I got home, I unlocked my desk drawer and pulled out the small ledger I'd kept since retirement. Each page was a habit from years of financial work columns, dates, logic. I turned to a new sheet and wrote June 4th, theft discovered. June 7th, 20,000 cash down. Lexus dealership, confirmed by witness. Rage might have burned out quickly, but cold anger lasted longer. I closed the book, placed it carefully back in the drawer, and turned off the light. Numbers didn't lie, people did. By the end of that week, I invited Caleb and Sierra for dinner. I told them I wanted a quiet evening, just family, the kind my husband used to insist on when life felt too scattered. Sierra offered to bring dessert. She arrived with a bakery box and perfume that announced her before the door opened. The table was set neatly: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a bottle of Cabernet I'd been saving. Caleb complimented the meal. Sierra took photos of her plate for social media, and I listened to them talk about work, about new opportunities. Halfway through the meal, Sierra glanced at Caleb, then leaned forward. "We finally did it," she said, her smile bright and rehearsed. "We bought a place in Scottsdale, 3 bedrooms, near the Greenbelt. The market's crazy, but we got lucky." Caleb nodded, pride and relief flickering across his face. Sierra handled most of it. He said, "She's amazing with details." I set my fork down. "That's a big step. I didn't realize you two were ready for that." Sierra laughed, waving a manicured hand. "Oh, you know how it is when you find the right house. You just go for it." She took another sip of wine, then added lightly, "Guess we'll have to hide our treasures better than you did." The air went still. Caleb's smile faltered. Sierra's cheeks flushed as she reached for her glass again, pretending to check her phone. I felt something cold move through me. Confirmation, not surprise. I smiled politely and refilled her glass. "That's good advice," I said. "Some things are worth protecting." We finished dinner in small talk, each word feeling rehearsed. When they left, I cleared the plate slowly, the smell of Sierra's perfume lingering in the kitchen. I washed the last glass, dried my hands, and stood by the sink until the headlights faded down the street. There was no longer any doubt, only quiet calculation. The following Monday, I drove downtown to a narrow office above a coffee shop on Central Avenue. The door read Marcus Webb, Financial Investigations. Marcus had been my colleague years ago at the firm, a quiet man who spoke in numbers more than words, the kind who always noticed when a decimal was off. He looked older, the gray at his temples showing, but his handshake was steady. "Evelyn," he said, gesturing to the chair across his desk. "I read about the theft in the local bulletin. I thought that couldn't be you." "It was," I said, "and I need your help." I laid out everything the safe. The missing cash, Sierra's sudden spending, the Lexus, the new house. Marcus listened without interruption, his pen moving in sharp, methodical lines. When I finished, he leaned back. "You think the funds came from your safe?" "I know they did," I replied. "I just need proof that can hold up." Over the next week, Marcus started digging. Each evening, he'd call with updates in that same even tone I remembered from the office. Mortgage filed, Scottsdale property, 3 bedrooms. Down payment, $45,000, in cash. Source not declared. He found more. Sierra had inflated her reported salary by nearly double to qualify for the loan. Her income verification letter was forged. Marcus traced the signature to a digital template. I met him again that Friday. He spread the documents across his desk, neat rows of highlighted numbers, legal forms, and printouts of property records. "Everything aligns," he said. "The timing, the amounts, the method. But there's no direct proof the cash was yours. Without receipts or eyewitnesses, the authorities couldn't act. But strategy and patience could still turn the numbers into leverage. Without that, police won't reopen the case." I studied the papers, each line a small betrayal dressed as data. "So legally. I have a perfect picture," I said. "Just no one willing to see it." Marcus nodded. "You can't prosecute them, Evelyn, but you can still outthink them." I looked out his window toward the street, where people moved under the bright Arizona sun, ordinary lives, predictable routines. "I used to live like that, too." "Then that's what I'll do," I said finally. "I'll make the numbers work in my favor." Marcus didn't ask how. He knew better than to interrupt a woman who had just chosen precision over rage. By the end of the month, the pieces had fallen into place. Marcus called one morning while I was pruning the bougainvillea by the porch. "Found something small but useful," he said. "The property taxes on their new house partially unpaid. $7,900. Dating back 2 years. It's public record." I wiped my hands on my apron. "Can anyone buy that debt?" "Anyone who knows where to look," he replied. That afternoon, I sat at my desk and filled out forms I hadn't touched since retirement. Corporate registration, mailing address, registered agent. The name came easily, Encanto Holdings. Something ordinary, something invisible. I used Marcus's office as the address of record. 2 days later, the transaction was official. Encanto Holdings now owned the right to collect Sierra and Caleb's unpaid taxes, plus interest. All paperwork was notarized and filed according to Arizona state regulations, ensuring the collection was fully legal and enforceable. The process was clean, quiet, entirely legal. I printed the certificate, signed it neatly, and filed it away in a blue folder marked Phase 1. The following morning, I opened my laptop again, this time to the IRS website. I'd reviewed the forms with Marcus weeks earlier, memorized every field. The page blinked white on my screen. Form 3949A, Information Referral. I filled in the blanks carefully, reporting unexplained cash payments and unreported income. No names beyond what the form required, no contact details. Just truth written in neutral language. When I clicked Submit, the confirmation number appeared in bold. I copied it down, folded the paper into the same blue folder, and slid it beside the lien certificate, outside. The afternoon light spilled across the living room floor, quiet and certain. I made tea, sat by the window, and waited for nothing in particular. Revenge wasn't the right word anymore. It was simply order restored one form at a time. 6 weeks passed before anything happened. Summer settled heavy over Phoenix, the kind of heat that pressed against the windows and made the air shimmer above the asphalt. I had almost stopped checking the mail with anticipation almost. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Caleb. His voice sounded thin, frayed at the edges. Mom, have you talked to Sierra today? No, I said, setting down my pruning shears. Why? He exhaled. We got a letter from the IRS. They're auditing us. They're asking for proof of income, cash deposits, everything from this year. His voice dropped lower. Sierra's freaking out. I kept my tone even. That must be stressful. It is. She's already contacted a tax attorney. They want a $5,000 retainer just to start. I don't even know where that money's coming from. I reminded Caleb that reporting unreported income to the IRS could trigger audits without revealing the reporter, maintaining my anonymity. Through the receiver, I could hear Sierra's voice in the background sharp, panicked. She was saying something about someone reporting us, about timing too perfect to be random. Mom, Caleb said quietly, you don't think anyone would have, done this on purpose, right? I looked out the window. The sky was a blinding white. Cicadas screaming from the mesquite trees. Sometimes these things just happen, I said. Computers pick patterns. It's nothing personal. That evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea as the light faded across town. I imagined them pacing through their kitchen, voices rising, numbers crumbling. Marcus had warned me it would start small letters, deadlines, panic disguised as control. The next day, Caleb came by alone. He looked older than his 34 years, shirt untucked, eyes hollow. She barely sleeps. He said, everything's falling apart. Could you talk to her? I don't think she'd listen. I replied softly. He nodded, defeated. I don't even know who she is anymore. After he left, I stayed by the window, the cup cooling in my hand. Justice had its own rhythm, quiet, relentless. Impossible to stop once it began. The certified letter went out on a Tuesday morning, sent from Marcus's office with my quiet approval. The language was simple, factual, almost polite. Encanto Holdings demanded full payment of the delinquent property taxes within 30 days. There was no mention of me, only signatures and a return address that led nowhere near my home. 3 days later, I heard a car pull into the driveway faster than usual. Sierra didn't knock. She pushed open the front door and stood in the entryway, her face flushed and trembling. In her hand was the envelope. What is this? She demanded, waving the letter. Some company called Encanto Holdings says we owe them money. You bought this, didn't you? I kept my voice calm. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me. Her voice cracked. First the audit, now this. The timing is too perfect. You're trying to ruin us. I looked at her hair disheveled, eyes rimmed with sleepless anger. Everything I've done is public record, I said quietly. Anyone can check. Behind her, Caleb appeared in the doorway, his tie loose, his expression stunned. Sierra, what are you talking about? She's behind this, Sierra hissed. Your mother's destroying us. Caleb turned to me, searching my face. I didn't move. The silence between us felt like something ancient breaking. Mom, he whispered. I warned you to keep your finances clean, I said. The rest isn't my responsibility. Sierra let out a low, disbelieving laugh and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Caleb lingered for a moment, eyes wet, before following her. When the house fell silent again, I stood by the window. The letter lay on the floor, its seal torn open, sunlight washing across the page like quiet proof. The notice came in early September. Sierra had defaulted. The lien matured. The grace period expired. And the Scottsdale house was officially scheduled for public auction. Marcus handled everything. I asked for no details, only the date and the paperwork. That morning, the courthouse steps were already crowded real estate agents, small investors, curious onlookers shielding their eyes from the desert glare. The air buzzed with heat and quiet speculation. Marcus stood beside me. composed as ever, his briefcase clasped in both hands. When the auctioneer read the address, my chest tightened. I remembered the photos online, the gleaming kitchen, the manicured lawn, the life Sierra had built from what she stole. The bidding started modestly. 2 men in suits lifted their paddles. Marcus waited, patient, until the 3rd round before he raised his hand. The numbers climbed. 1 bidder dropped out. Then another. When the final call echoed, "Sold to Encanto Holdings," the gavel struck wood, sharp as a heartbeat. All legal paperwork had been pre-verified to ensure the sale would be recognized immediately, leaving no loophole for delay. Marcus turned to me, gave a small nod. "It's done." I didn't smile. There was nothing to celebrate. We walked down the courthouse steps together, the sunlight cutting through the trees. Across the parking lot, I saw Sierra and Caleb standing by their car. She was gripping the steering wheel, her hair pulled back hastily, eyes red. When Marcus handed the clerk the final signature, Sierra saw him, and then me, her face drained of color. She stumbled toward us, disbelief breaking into her voice. "It's impossible," she whispered. "It can't be." Caleb caught her before she fell. He didn't look at me. I stood still as the clerk stamped the paperwork, the sound echoing softly between us. The pages were warm from the sun when I held them, a deed returned by the same system she'd thought she could outsmart. By winter, the house on Encanto Drive no longer felt like a battlefield. Contractors had finished the minor repairs, the yard had been cleaned, and the soft hum of life returned to the place. I didn't move in. Instead, I found a young couple teachers with a baby on the way who fell in love with the wide kitchen and quiet neighborhood. They signed the lease with gratitude that reminded me of simpler years. The rent covered more than the expenses. I sent the first check to a local women's shelter, one my late husband and I had supported decades ago, for rebuilding. I wrote in the memo line, "It felt right, turning something taken in greed into something that could give again." Caleb never called after the auction. Word through a mutual friend was that he and Sierra had separated. She'd left the city. He'd gone back to his old job, quieter now, older in the ways that matter most. I didn't hate either of them anymore. There wasn't space left in me for that. Phoenix evenings carried their own kind of peace, long shadows, distant freeway hum, the scent of dust cooling after heat. I made tea most nights, read in silence, lived small and steady. One evening, I stepped out onto the porch. The air was clear, a pale gold lingering over the desert sky. The house light, the one my husband installed decades ago, still worked perfectly. I reached for the switch and watched it glow across the street. "This light isn't for waiting anymore," I whispered. "It's for peace." Inside, the house was quiet except for the steady hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in a long while, that quiet didn't sound like loss. It sounded like a life restored.